Hello, Sippers. I'm Martia.
I'm Demetrius.
And I'm Renee.
And welcome to this week's episode of Sip and Unwind True Crime Podcast. Hey, ladies. Hey, Sippers.
Hey, ladies. Hey, Sippers. We back. How you guys doing?
True Crime Tuesday.
Okay.
Our favorite day of the week. True Crime Tuesday.
Drop it on them Tuesday. Drop it on
them. Right. Sippers, if you didn't already know, although we are a true crime podcast, we also discuss many other topics. So please make sure you keep listening after our case discussion because we have a few other segments you don't want to miss. Now, before I begin speaking on this case, I want to acknowledge the people that these crimes have left a lasting impact on. We want to send our heartfelt sympathy not only to the survivors, but also to the loved ones and friends of all the victims we are about to discuss.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. Okay, ladies, let me tell the sippers what we're sipping on for this True Crime Tuesday episode.
Okay.
It's called Sparkling Pomegranate Punch, and it's the perfect mix of sweet and tart. Prosecco is the main ingredient for this cocktail, but that can be replaced with sparkling grape juice for the non-alcohol version.
Yes.
As always, right.
Sorry.
No
Sorry,
judging, but
yeah.
I made the Prosecco version here.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, the recipe details will be posted on our IG, Facebook, and Twitter pages. All right, sippers. So, ladies, today's case takes us back to the year 2016 and takes us over to St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, so this is a pretty recent one.
It is, yes. Usually I go back in time,
Right.
But yeah, this is a recent one. So I'm going to discuss the case of James Timothy Norman, who I'll be referring to as Tim when I provide the details of this case.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
I know this one. Well, I don't know it, but I've heard it, but I've never heard the details like in the nitty-gritty, so I'm ready.
Right. So the victim in this case is Andre Montgomery Jr. So if the names of these two individuals sound familiar, it's because they both appeared on a popular reality TV series on the Oprah Winfrey Network called Welcome to Sweetie Pies. The show starred former Ikeette Robbie Montgomery. Robbie, affectionately known as Miss Robbie, started off as one of the original Ikeette with Ike and Tina Turner Revue. That was back in the 1960s. So for those of our young listeners who don't know what the Ikeettes are, the singers Ike and Tina Turner, they had a real popular group, and the background singers were nicknamed the Ikeettes. So that was even before my time. So I just want to give a background there in case someone was listening and was like, what are the Ikeettes? So Miss Robbie was in that group for several years until she suffered a collapsed lung due to the autoimmune disease sarcoidosis. And by the 70s, she had to stop singing. Miss Robbie did later go on a European tour, like later on in the 80s. I think around 1986 and 1987, she tried to kind of revive her singing career, but her career was not what it once was since she had gone through so much. So Miss Robbie decided to pour her heart into another venture, which was a soul food restaurant called Sweetie Pies. Miss Robbie took her mother's soul food recipes and opened her first restaurant in 1996. She hired family members to help her run the business, and she was also known for hiring men who needed jobs after being released from prison. So the two of you have heard of this show, right?
I've heard of it. I've never watched it though, so I don't really know the characters.
I've seen a select few episodes only because of the drama surrounding it.
So same here. I never really watched the show, but I did catch a couple of episodes. I didn't really follow it to know who everybody was, but I knew who Miss Robbie was, and I knew like who her nephew and her son. Yeah, I didn't really keep up with the show.
Yeah.
I would hear about it when there was some drama. And
I was about to say, I just heard the gossip around it because I remember Jennifer from Basketball Wives used to date
her son.
Yeah, and then he stole some money from her or something like that too.
Exactly. So that was when I would hear about the show the most, whenever there was drama.
And his hips too.
Built like his mama. Isn't that crazy? Right. So the Welcome to Sweetie Pie show premiered on October 15, 2011, and it was a docuseries following Robbie and her family as they worked together to build the Sweetie Pies franchise. The show went on to air for 9 seasons, with season 9 premiering on May 1st, 2018. The final season of Welcome to Sweetie Pies included 6 episodes, which was the lowest number of episodes compared to the previous seasons, and the series finale aired on June 9th, 2018. Welcome to Sweetie Pies actually won the Image Award for Best Reality TV series in 2013 and 2016. Robbie Montgomery had two sons, Andre LaJuan Montgomery Sr., who was born in 1961, and James Timothy Norman, who was born in 1979. Andre Sr. passed away on May 2nd, 1995, after getting into an altercation with two men on the street. One of the men hit Andre over the head with a baseball bat while the other man stabbed him to death.
Oh my gosh. Ooh,
yeah,
I've never heard of that.
Died a pretty violent death. Andre Sr. was 34 years old, leaving behind an infant son, Andre Montgomery Jr., who was born October 14th, 1994, just a few months prior to his father's death. Miss Robbie's other son, James Norman, who goes by the name Tim, served 10 years in prison when he was convicted of armed robbery at the age of 17. He was charged for robbing two McDonald's and an auto parts store at gunpoint. While he was in prison, he vowed to change his life around, and he took acting and theater classes from behind bars. When Tim got out of prison, he became popular in the St. Louis area for speaking to at-risk youth about the dangers of crime and the lasting impact that criminal convictions can have on a person's life. Tim also helped Miss Robbie run the Sweetie Pies franchise, and by the time season 1 aired, he was actually a general manager at the main restaurant located in St. Louis. Although Tim was in the spotlight from being on a reality show, he still managed to have run-ins with the law. In 2016, Miss Robbie sued her son Tim for stealing money and violating her Sweetie Pies trademark to open up competing restaurant. And in 2017, she also filed a motion to enforce a settlement agreement. During this time, Tim had been dating Basketball Wives star Jennifer Williams for a little over a year until they broke up in 2017. After the breakup, Jennifer accused Tim of stalking her and stated he grew increasingly aggressive and angry, and she claimed to be living in fear.
I remember that now. I forgot about that stalking thing too, and she went to court. I forgot all about. Oh, man.
I had forgot about that too.
Me too. Wow. And you know what? I just never associated all of this with that situation. That is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so during that same year, Jennifer took out an order of protection against Tim. Now, Tim would later go on to say Jennifer was lying, and he accused her of retaliating against him because he never asked her to marry him. So that situation happened. And then also, probably like a few months later in 2018, Tim was accused of punching an ex-Sweetie Pie chef in the face after an argument. And whenever that happened, Jennifer was actually on the premises. So she was at the restaurant during the alleged assault, but she didn't witness the events leading up to the dispute. But that victim actually filed criminal charges with the district attorney's office over that incident against him.
Good.
So yeah, quite a few different situations.
Like a menace. Good Lord.
Exactly.
Right.
But the show, when it first came on, like that was around the time that I saw the couple of episodes. It was probably during season 1. And he had a family. He had I don't think he ever married the woman, but he did have a baby with a woman.
I do remember
that. Yeah, so I'm thinking, I didn't even know about his history of being in jail for those years. I'm like, wow. Because he just kind of, I guess initially to me was just like a family guy, or at least he seemed like he was trying to be. So okay, so let's go back to the lawsuit I mentioned earlier. Remember I told you Miss Robbie sued Tim back in 2016. The lawsuit basically was alleging trademark infringement over Tim's use of the Sweetie Pie's name at 3 of his restaurants in the St. Louis area and in California. At the time of the lawsuit, one of the locations was closed, and 2 of the restaurants located in Missouri owed more than $80,000 in back sales and withholding taxes. Robbie claimed Tim was misusing signage and promotions material for his locations, and she accused him of diverting substantial sums of revenue from the Manchester location towards his other restaurants. Now, the Manchester location at the time was the most popular location and pretty much the place where the show was focused. So not only was this dude opening up these other locations, using that original name from his mom, he was funneling money from the most profitable location into whatever other endeavors he was working on. He owed back pay on taxes or whatever.
Right.
I mean, all of this financial stuff. So that, if I'm not mistaken, was settled out of court, but I'm not sure. So don't quote me on that, Zippers. So anyway, so going back to Andre Jr., which is Tim's nephew and Miss Robbie's grandson. Andre Jr., after his father was killed, he was raised in Texas by his mother, Michelle Griggs. And he had contact with Miss Robbie and his uncle Tim, but he didn't live in Missouri with them. But in 2014, when Andre was in his teens, Tim talked Michelle into allowing Andre to come and live with him in St. Louis. He told told his nephew's mother that he wanted to help Andre get out of the gang and drug life. So Andre kind of was hanging with the wrong crowd out there in Texas. And he presented to her, she could let her son live with him and he would act as a father figure to Andre and teach him how to be a man. Andre made the move and he became a regular on the family's reality show. And that gave the audience a glimpse into his transformation. The show would highlight Andre working for Miss Robbie at the restaurant, going back to school to earn his high school diploma. It showed his graduation. The family was just kind of rallying around him and rooting for him.
Okay. All the great highlights of his transformation.
Yeah, it didn't show him like getting into a whole bunch of trouble. Right. But I guess with the background, I think Miss Robbie did express that she was kind of hoping that he wouldn't get back into his old ways. But when Andre relocated to St. Louis, his Uncle Tim made sure to get a $450,000 life insurance policy on his nephew. Allegedly, his grandmother, Miss Robbie, took out a policy on him as well. But I don't have a whole bunch of details on that.
Okay, I was going to say, wow. Kind of odd.
So that's why I had to say allegedly. Now, Tim's insurance policy was obtained illegally, but of course, at the time, no one knew. Tim worked with a guy named Wael Wally Yagnam. So I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name right, but the nickname was Wally. Now, Wally was a former producer for hip hop star Nelly turned insurance agent. So I'm not sure if he was still a producer at the time he was an insurance agent, but I know he had his hand in the music industry at some point. In October 2014, Tim and Wally submitted like 5 different life insurance applications, all of them containing numerous false statements pertaining to Andre's net worth, his income, his employment, his family background, and medical history. The first $200,000 policy had a $200,000 accidental death clause that would pay out if Andre died of something other than natural causes. There was an additional $50,000 that would pay out if Andre died within 10 years of the policy being issued. The policies had Tim as the sole beneficiary, but little did Tim know the policies would later be flagged for fraud by the insurance company when they went back to try to verify some of that information and they weren't able to do so.
Wow.
In the months leading up to Andre's death, his Uncle Tim would conspire with several people in a murder-for-hire plot. He would communicate with several folks on burner phones in the hopes that communication would never be traced. A few days leading up to the murder, someone broke into Miss Robbie's home and stole her belongings and ransacked the place. And unfortunately, her grandson Andre would become a primary suspect in that home invasion. No one was home at the time and nobody got hurt, but Andre, the blame was placed on him for some reason.
It had gotten to the point where Miss Robbie wanted her grandson to take a lie detector test to prove his innocence.
Now, one time, Andre was living with his Uncle Tim, but he moved out when the two began not getting along. And I think that kind of has something to do with the reason why Tim tried to place blame on Andre, talking about, oh, I know he did it, or he had some of his friends do it. But Andre would quickly deny any involvement. And some of this activity was shown on Welcome to Sweetie Pie show. So for anyone who watched the show, you may remember this particular episode being aired. And I didn't watch the whole episode, so I can't speak to it. But if I'm not mistaken, I think that Miss Robbie may have thought that her grandson had something to do with that home invasion as well. So little did Miss Robbie know, but at the time, her son Tim was the one who staged the robbery, and he actually set up Andre to place some blame on him to make him look bad, which was terrible.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So the whole time Miss Robbie is all frazzled about this break-in. Andre's trying to say, wait a minute, Grandma, I didn't do that. Tim was the one who set the whole thing up. And also there was records of Andre telling people, including his grandma, that he believed Tim was after him. So whatever dispute that Andre and his Uncle Tim had, Andre pretty much figured Tim is after me. He's going to get me one day. And he just put the warning out there to whoever he could tell. So while all this is going on, Tim was working with Tarika Ellis, who was an exotic dancer, to basically get her to lure Andre out one night. So he put it on her to figure out, what is Andre doing? Where is he going? And where is he going to be? Because he wanted to basically set him up. So Tarika basically contacted Andre on Instagram, started up conversation. And through those conversations, she gained Andre's trust. There was actually some information from a YouTuber, but it showed conversation where Tarika was asking Andre about hanging out. Andre was interested, and he was just talking to her like she was an old friend. So through conversation, she was able to find out Andre's whereabouts specifically on March 16, 2016. 2016. Andre had flew into St. Louis to record a music video because he was an aspiring rapper. And meanwhile, Tim had flown out to California to take care of some business. So the night before, March 15th, Tim was still in town. And as a matter of fact, he flew out to California the morning of March 16th. But that night of, Tim and Tarika spent the night together and basically planned out the next day. After Tarika left the hotel, she tried to link up with Andre, but she also was in touch with another man named Travell Anthony Hill. Travell was Tim's cellmate back in prison. And so basically he went back to his old cellmate and hired him as the gunman. So on the night of Andre's death, Tarika reported Andre's location to Tim, and she also reached out to Travell. As Andre left the video shoot, thinking he was getting ready to go meet up with Tarika, he was fatally shot with a .380 caliber handgun at approximately 8:02 p.m. on the night of March 16, 2016.
Ooh, man. How old was he at the time?
21 years old.
21.
Yes, they pretty much ambushed him. After the murder, Travell disposed of his burner phone and his gun, and he was paid $5,000 for shooting Tim's nephew.
$5,000? That's nothing.
Right.
You can burn that in a night at a club. Like,
right.
You risking going, oh my goodness.
And that was like a down payment because he was promised more money, and I'm not sure the exact amount, but he was promised more money for after that insurance, insurance payout. Tarika was paid $10,000 just for locating Andre and helping to set him up. And she also discarded her burner phone after the murder. Now, Tarika would later claim that she knew Tim was going to make some sort of action towards Andre, but she claimed she didn't know that Andre was going to be murdered. So I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, you know, you're with criminals, and
exactly,
there had to be some kind of conversation. So
exactly, right.
I agree.
Yeah, so Tim would try to cash in on those insurance policies pretty much 4 days after the murder. So, like I said, those insurance policies were flagged and they never went through. Mind you, this was 2016. I want to remind you of the year because the show didn't end until 2018. And the case didn't really get cracked open until 2020, but I'll get to that. So on the show, you can see Miss Robbie made it very clear that she believed Andre's murder was a setup. She said Andre received a phone call moments before his death, and for a while, investigators didn't know, or if they knew, they didn't reveal if they were aware of where that call came from. So according to a TMZ report, Andre was staying at a local hotel, and during that time, someone entered that hotel with a key and stole his belongings. But they weren't able to say at the time whether that was connected to the murder or whether he was set up by someone at the hotel just because they knew who he was. But also on the show, on one of the episodes, Tim and his mother, Miss Robbie, they visited the scene of Andre's murder. And Tim was kind of like, yeah, it happened over here, just kind of talking about what happened, but it just seemed kind of strange when you go back to a murder scene of one of your family members, and he didn't really have no emotion behind talking about his nephew's murder.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, we all know what that usually leads to.
Right, exactly. And just the irony here, Andre's father, like I said, he was murdered. Tim's father also lost his life, and Andre Sr.'s father was murdered. So like all these men were murdered connected to this family, but specifically Andre Jr.'s father and him, and also Tim's father, were all murdered on the same St. Louis strip. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, once I learned that fact, it was like, okay, Tim didn't control his father being murdered because his father passed away when he was an infant. So Tim never knew his father. Tim's brother was murdered on that same strip. And I kind of was wondering, well, did he set this young man up on this strip on purpose? That thought just kind of just gives me chills.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's just like, why would you come up with that location knowing that your father died there?
Right.
And your brother died there? Was that on purpose? It's just kind of weird. So anyway, like I said, it wasn't until 2020 everybody got arrested or whatever. So here it is from 2016 all the way to 2020. That's like 4 years. And Tim was walking around here claiming he was innocent because people suspected him. I don't know what it is about these folks on the internet and these people who watch these shows, but he was a suspect in some people's eyes before he became a suspect to the public. But his mother, Miss Robbie, she stuck beside her son. Even with her grandson telling her, man, Tim is after me, Miss Robbie still stuck beside her son. So
I mean, but she knew, well, I'm about to say she knows his background. Like she knows her son. Like, you know your son.
Right.
And you kind of
yeah, it's It's interesting. So on August 18, 2020, Tim was arrested in Mississippi and charged for his alleged role in the murder for hire plot that resulted in the death of Andre Jr. back in 2016. Tarika, the dancer, she was charged on July 8, 2020, and Wally was charged August 20th, while the gunman Travell was charged November 20th, all of these dates in 2020. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe when Tarika was charged in July, I think that she was the one who kind of started the whole story about who all was involved here.
So did she start singing? Yeah.
I think so.
I know I would.
Mm-hmm. So Tarika and the other two co-conspirators, Travell and Wally, they would later plead guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. Tim's murder trial began on September 6, 2022, which, as you guys know, was just a few weeks ago. And he was found guilty on September 16th after the jury deliberated for only 17 hours. He was able to avoid the death penalty, but he does face a life sentence. He was charged with 2 federal murder for hire counts and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. The jury did conclude that Tim hired 2 people to kill Andre Montgomery, who was only 21 when he passed away on March 14, 2016. And they concluded that the motive was to gain the $450,000 life insurance policy that he had taken out on his nephew a couple years prior. All right, so like I stated, Tim was found guilty, but the sentencing will not be final until December. As of this week, and I think as soon as like Thursday or Friday, the very last location of Sweetie Pies that was still open, it closed its doors.
Oh, okay. I'm wondering.
Yeah. So with all the controversy and all the different things happening, I guess one by one, different locations were closing anyway, but the final location closed this week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy case. So the sources for this case were Wikipedia.com, Oprah.com, HolidayMask.com, CheatSheet.com, ShadowandAct.com, and Justice.gov. So several sources for this case, because right now it's like the talk of the internet. Everyone's been following this case and posting about it.
Yeah, because I see bits and pieces of it, but I never really did dig into the story because I never watched the show. Right. So I did,
Yeah.
But, man,
it is the hot topic right now, though.
It is.
I have a question on that. Did they say anything about Tim? Did he get like any kind of was he diagnosed with anything?
What you mean, like?
It just seems like
issues?
Yeah, because it seems like he's been doing stuff like his whole life, and then stalking people, killing, his relative, and just all the stuff that he's done. It just seems like you might have been diagnosed with something, like something's not right in your brain, like something isn't working right.
I didn't see anything that talked about his mental.
Or do you just feel like you're privileged to other people's things?
And then the home invasion,
right?
Like of your grandmother and I can see if you're doing like criminal things to other people,
exactly,
but to the people in your family,
right? And I think too, what really got me about this case, like I said, I kind of remembered seeing clips here and there, or maybe watching a couple of episodes. And initially, the show seemed pretty wholesome. Like it didn't start off as one of those reality shows where people were going to be fighting and cussing and all these other different things. So the element that Tim brought to the show just really threw me off, because it was like, initially he kind of appeared to be this guy that wanted to turn his life around. So then to find out that he had all this other mess going on behind the scenes, it was just like really crazy to think about it. So like, you're planning on killing your nephew. Like you took out a whole policy before you set the wheels in motion to kill him. Like you're on it now. They did bigger on the show, but it wasn't to the point of where you would think the dude was going to kill his nephew.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't know if he was afraid that his mother was going to maybe leave the fortune to him.
Oh, now that could be a good allegedly theory.
But I don't know what it was about his nephew. And so then it made me wonder, like, what happened to Tim's brother? Because they might need to reopen that case. But like I said, it was pretty clear what happened to the brother. It was some kind of fight. So I don't think that would have been any type of setup. I don't know.
And then you're on TV. So it's not like, like everybody knows you guys. Everybody knows your family. And it's just, I don't know.
Ridiculous.
I know, because some people were saying you can tell this wasn't scripted, because there's stuff in there that just shouldn't have been in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And also on the show, when it was time for Andre's memorial, Tim, he showed up late to the memorial, if I'm not mistaken. It was something weird about that. I don't think he missed it. I think he showed up super late or something like that. And you can kind of see people asking Miss Robbie, like, where's Tim? You know, and she was like, oh, he'll be here soon or whatever. And then Andre's mother, she said that Tim didn't even reach out to her when Andre first passed away. And then right before the funeral, he was like, oh, yeah, sorry for your loss. Like real nonchalant. Ooh. About the death of his nephew. So she just was like, his behavior was pretty strange. But I saw the messages between Andre and that dancer, and that kind of broke my heart a little bit, because you could just kind of see, you know, the way Andre was talking to her, at least he seemed to be smitten by her. He would have never suspected that the girl Tarika was involved in that. The worst cases are the ones where the victim knows the person who killed them in these intimate relationships, such as family members, spouses, or whatever. This is no different. It's crazy to me. 4 years, you get away with killing your nephew. For 2 years, you continue to do a reality show.
And your family's mourning the loss and all that, and you're just, you know, you can still continue on.
I don't know. Does he just feel like he was privileged to have what other people have?
But take note, sippers, because burner phones can be traced. That was a big part of how this case was cracked open.
Ooh.
If it wasn't for those burner phones,
they wouldn't have had
nothing. Probably wouldn't have had anything. Exactly. Think back in the day, them burner phones couldn't be traced. And maybe it couldn't have been. Maybe back then that was the case. But today, they can trace them burner phones.
I guess because so many people were doing crimes using those phones.
Oh, you're right.
We didn't watch The Wire back in the day.
Right.
40 phones at a time and just keep swapping them out.
Okay, ladies. So I guess it's time to close the book on the case of James Timothy Norman.
Yes.
All right. So the next segment, ladies and sippers, is going to be a missing person segment. It's going to be a case that I did not cover, but it recently made the news because the woman went missing a few months ago, and they just made an arrest in her disappearance. And I wanted to provide details about that case and also give the update. Okay, sippers. So this case is an update about a missing woman. 24-year-old Alania Lenore was last seen on July 30th, 2022 at the Peachtree Midtown Apartments in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, pretty sad update on this one. So even though we didn't cover the case on our podcast, this case definitely was a big deal here in Atlanta. So I want to make sure we cover it and give the update. So almost 2 months later, on September 20th, the Atlanta Police Department announced during a press conference they believe Alania was murdered and that her body had been disposed of. Alania's case was featured on Dateline back in August, and her mother was interviewed, Jeanette Jackson, and she told Dateline that on the night of July 30th, Alania was hanging out with a close family friend and 2 guys at the Peachtree Midtown apartment. The next morning, Alania's friend called her house to check to see if she made it home safely, since that particular friend had left the gathering early. But unfortunately, Alania had not come home. On Monday, August 1st, Jeanette reported her daughter missing to the Atlanta Police Department. During Tuesday's press conference, Peter Malecki with the Atlanta Police Department, he said that with the help of technology and video information, they were able to determine early on that Alana was last seen during the early morning hours of July 1st at 1660 Peachtree Street. He said during the conference that APD officers were able to obtain search warrants and determine that Alania did not at any point leave 1660 Peachtree Street on her own accord. He went on to say that investigators believe that she died inside the apartment and then was potentially relocated to an undetermined location. Major Malachi also identified the 2 men Alania was last seen with at the apartment complex as suspects in her disappearance. Their names were Deontay Reynolds and Stephen Oboit. According to Major Malecki, Reynolds is currently being held at the Fulton County Jail. It's unclear if he has an attorney, and the APD is asking for help to locate Oboit, the other suspect. At this time, they believe that he is still in the Atlanta metro area and they just aren't able to locate him. During the press conference, Major Malecki said that both men were facing felony murder and concealing a death charges. He also said that the close family friend who left Alania at the apartments is not facing any charges at all. The evidence that they have does not suggest that that individual had anything to do with the young woman's disappearance. So right now, the goal for the police department is to locate Alania Alania's body so that her family can actually get some level of closure with this case. So now her mother, Jeanette Jackson, said she pretty much knew that finding her daughter was going to be a race against time, but she said they do remain hopeful that she could be still alive since there has been no body found. The family is devastated by the latest updates, but they are encouraging the general public to continue sharing tips and information. So anyone with information about Alania's disappearance or the whereabouts of the other suspect, Stephen O'Boyd, they're asked to contact the Atlanta Police Department at 404-546-4235. So her family still has hope that perhaps she may still be alive because there has been no body found. So prayers up, the family gets the answers that they're looking for.
And I want to interject something. Yes. Ladies, be mindful of your friends. Why would you leave her with two complete strangers? I mean,
right.
I couldn't do that. As for me, I couldn't do it.
I see both ends of it, though. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong, but I can kind of see adults making their own choices.
Right.
You can look out for your
just
friends.
Be mindful for her to keep checking in, because I would check in. Girl, you okay?
Yeah.
You all right? Periodically. You don't have to be every 5 minutes.
Right.
I'll pray for the family that they get the information and leads that they need.
I hope so too. All right, so that's the missing persons case for this week, and I'll post pictures and as much information as I can. All right, sippers and ladies, the last segment for this episode, I want to move into a messy wind down. All right, so I'm pretty sure you ladies may have heard this story because it went viral just recently. I'm going to read an article. Nia Long was blindsided by the affair her fiance,
now see,
Ime Udoka, had with a Celtics employee. And I'm not sure how to pronounce this man's name.
Me either.
But yeah, TMZ reports that Udoka kept Nia in the dark about his affair, even though the team busted him months ago.
I was about to say, he knew it was coming.
Right.
Like, he knew it was going to come to the media soon.
Right.
And he still didn't say nothing.
Yeah, so the Celtics apparently began investigating the coach's affair back in July, but he apparently
did not
reveal that to his long-term significant other, Nia Long, until the last several days when Udoka knew that it was about to go public. The report added that the couple was recently house hunting in Boston after Nia Long moved to the city recently. There was a strong level of outpouring of love and support from family and friends and the community during this difficult time for Nia Long, and she did make a statement saying that all of that outpouring of love and support meant so much to her. Nia Long told TMZ in a statement, "I ask that my privacy be respected as I process the recent event, and above all, I am a mother and I will continue to focus on my children." Nia Long and Udoka have been dating since 2010 after they were introduced by mutual friends. They got engaged back in 2015 and they also have a 10-year-old son. We all know a little bit about Nia Long's background. She's definitely starred in several movies and shows.
Right.
She's 51 years old and her fiance is actually 45 years old. And Udoka was suspended for at least the 2022 to 2023 NBA season by the Celtics. And he actually led the Celtics to the NBA Finals in his first season as a head coach. So also, in addition to the affair, he was accused of making unwanted comments towards the woman. So the woman's identity has not been revealed, but he did issue a public apology. And he said, "I want to apologize to our players, fans, the entire Celtics organization, and my family for letting them down." He said, "I am sorry for putting the team in this difficult situation, and I accept the team's decision. Out of respect for everyone involved, I have no further comment." So this article says that Udoka's future for the team is pretty murky beyond this season, and the team held a press conference and they made no promises that he will return as head coach after his suspension is up. The article goes on to kind of state some other things as well, basically that there's no clear direction as to where his position with the team is going to go or what this investigation will reveal, because it seemed to be some kind of discrepancy whether there was a consensual affair or unwanted advances made towards this woman. The internet has gone crazy because super sleuths have been out there trying to figure out who this woman is, and they have.
I know they need to go on and say it because they're getting everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to find her out.
Right. to the point where one of the commentators on the sports channel had to make a plea like, stop calling out these women because now they're being harassed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's them being irresponsible, because you can't release that information and then you don't say more on the person, or at least a general, of who that person is. You know, because now you're going to take every person, every female in that organization, and then they're going to start getting in their DMs, start looking at their Instagram,
exactly
start looking at, doing. Harassing their families and seeing.
Wow. So you think they should drop a name, like a first name only, or?
I mean, they dropped his name.
Well, some people suspect that they haven't released the name. This is what some people are suspecting, because they're saying if it was unwanted advances or
I heard it was a consensual relationship.
I heard both. Yeah, they're saying there's a discrepancy there. So if it was an unwanted situation or something that happened that wasn't consensual, they're saying that could be the reason why the name isn't being released.
It could be him saying it was consensual and she's saying.
Well, no, because I think this was already investigated many months ago. So I think they've already kind of gotten to the bottom of it. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that they're, I mean, rightfully so, protecting the women. But now what you releasing half the information, and the internet is a lot of people's playground.
And I think they investigated it. But I also feel like they're holding back. Like they may have investigated, but it's almost like the full investigation. Why is it so many questions? You know what I'm saying? Like they've investigated.
Well, no, I think they have all the answers on their end. They're just not releasing.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying?
To the press.
That's what I think that.
And I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. It's probably a little bit more to that. He's saying it's consensual, like Demetrius was just mentioning.
I don't even think he said. Did he say anything?
Let me see.
No, I'm not saying. What I'm saying in generalizing, like maybe that's what his
I'm saying
versus what, in order to get the conflicting stories, in order for the stories to conflict. Yeah,
that's what I'm about to say. That's what I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is, did he like say anything? Like we're saying, like
I don't know where the investigation
was there
conclusion.
Okay, I just wondered if I missed something.
No.
Like,
I was just saying hypothetically speaking. Like, what if his team is saying yes, it was two consenting adults, but then her team is like, no, this is what happened. He did it. Like sometimes the stories get twisted. It's his side, her side, and the truth. But how much of that will the public actually know?
Right.
And, I can understand Nia. She probably want everything protect. That's her privacy. At the end of the day, she got to protect her kids.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the kids. I'm not saying, you can't hide from the public. Once it's out there, it's just out there. They're going to run with the story and then make it a whole different narrative.
And some people speculated that maybe they didn't release the woman's name because perhaps she's the wife of a big wig executive.
That's what I heard too.
But I'm sure it's going to come out at some point. Like it's only going to be but so far they're going to be able to go. The public is going to force this to happen is what I'm thinking.
Right.
That's true. And at the end of the day, with him, we can't pronounce his name. We kind of don't even really care about the female itself. It's all about Nia.
Right.
It's all about
like that's what everybody else is just concerned about. What? Like everybody like Nia, you can't mess with Nia. Right. That's our girl.
And that brings me to something else that's been buzzing is people talking about, but she was a fiance for 7 years. People have been kind of talking about that part of it too. Like, man, they were together for 10 years. She's not his wife. She was only his fiance. She's the girlfriend moving across country. Like I've just seen so many different comments about the situation. So I kind of was thinking like, okay, would there be a different outcome if she was married to him?
I mean, it would have been the same, right? Like, what would be different? I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, because he's going to do what he was going to do.
Exactly. I get people questioning why would you remain a girlfriend for 10 years or why would you remain a fiance for 7 years? At the end of the day, we don't know what's going on in somebody else's relationship. And if he cheated on her as her husband or her boyfriend, if she's not going to stay with him, what would be the difference in the end result? What she could get out of the divorce?
But I say it looks like it's better that she's not married if she's trying to leave him now at this point. I mean, I don't know if she's leaving or staying, but I'm just saying, I mean, now that he's done this, what you gonna do now, girl?
The fact that he didn't marry her, does that speak to this is who he was all along? I don't know. I guess people still kind of put value on husbands, wives, and whether it happens
they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Yeah. So they're like, well, he never really respected her in the first place because he didn't make her his wife, so yeah, there was a lot of controversy with that.
Yeah.
And I believe that to be true. I just kind of feel like the longer a person like if you're somebody's fiance for 7 years, it could just be her. Like, we don't know. So I won't speak directly to their situation because it could be her saying she wants to wait. But I do, in my personal opinion, I don't express it, but I do find it kind of interesting when I see dynamics of boyfriend, girlfriend for 10, 15 years, or we're engaged for 8 years or 9 years. I do be wondering like, what's taking so long? But I'll never ask that because it's not my business, but I do be wondering like what's taking so long. So I mean, but it's everybody's relationship. What happens in mine may bother other people, right? So it's not my business on what's going on in somebody's relationship. So because in my marriage somebody else may be bothered by what we do, But I will just say I'm curious, right?
Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it kind of don't matter, married, unmarried. He was going to do what he was going to do. It. I mean, I don't think that, it would have stopped if he would, because it's like we see married men cheat all the time. So it's not like, oh my gosh, if he would have been married to her, he wouldn't have done that.
Right.
No, it was already in him. He was going to do that anyway. He probably done that before at the other organization. We never knew that.
Right.
I
don't know what it feels like to have had a boyfriend for that long. Yeah. So to be thinking about moving across the United States for my boyfriend.
Yeah.
If you go into a business venture with your boyfriend, I guess you're entitled legally to half of the business if it gets dissolved.
But the shallow part of me is like, but he had a good job though too. So I mean, he was a head coach.
That's right. He might have been a great provider.
Girl, I'd have went cross country because as soon as I can go right back, like money ain't really the issue.
Right.
Like saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job if I, I'm going to follow him. No, he good. He got it. So I mean,
right. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm only speculating because I don't know the ins and outs of their relationship or their finances or any of that. So,
and we sure don't. And hell, Nia could be cheating this whole time too. We don't know.
So many variables to that. Yeah. Right. So anyway, I brought it up though because it was just more than a story for me. Was the comment section.
Oh man, the comments are funny.
Yeah, so all these different things that people brought up.
And then the other dumb comments that I seen about this was they say, oh my gosh, Nia Long can get cheated on, and who else? Halle Berry, she can get cheated on too. So women, it ain't about to. And I was just like, that's such a stupid. I don't think that anybody think, okay, well, because they look so good, they're never going to get cheated on. Like, I don't ever think that.
Examples of that is in society. It don't even have to be celebrities giving us examples of that. Like, people do not care. And we don't own each other either.
And it don't matter. No matter what
whatever they want to do, no matter what. I think that speaks to the person's inner struggles.
That's what it exactly. And it got nothing to do with you or what you look like and all that other stupid stuff.
It really speaks more to the person's character that's doing the cheating and less about the person who's getting cheated on.
And it's not you, it's them, clearly. It just is.
It doesn't lessen the blow.
So I have a question for you ladies then. So, so if you guys were in Nia's position, what would you do? Would you leave or stay?
I would probably leave because I kind of look at the fact that it's been 10 years. I'm leaving. Like, we don't even have to continue because you ain't gonna marry me. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave. That might be the only advantage to being married is that you're entitled to get some of the earnings that he had.
Okay, yeah.
I'm dragging you through the court. I'm getting half of what you got. For me, my answer is I'm leaving.
What you doing, Demetrius?
I don't know. I'm in a toss-up.
Okay.
Because sometimes you invest a lot of yourself into a relationship. It's hard to just walk away. I might try to see, where we can go or if he can be repaired. And if he can't, then that's when I'm walking away.
And they do have a 10-year-old son too, isn't it? 10?
Yeah.
10 or something. Or something like that. Somewhere around that age.
I would just have to see.
I think he is 10. What you doing, Renee?
I don't know. I think the money good. I think I'll probably stay for a little bit and I'll just, keep my distance or figure out some way to make it work. But let's say if she's just a regular girl, I would stay.
Oh, okay.
If the money good.
But yeah, ladies, that's all I got for you for this episode.
Okay, well,
you had a lot for us today.
You brought some bangers out. You came on hard.
I know. You're just gonna drop this and then you're just gonna dip on out.
Yeah. Then you give us the scenario. Well, what would you do? Okay. Well, bye, ladies. Bye, guys.
I'm out. All right.
I'm just saying, like, my job is done, and y'all know the struggle it took me to get here. This was about 5 days in the making.
Girl, but it was worth it. It was worth it for the sippers.
Anything for the sippers, ladies.
Sippers, if you only knew.
Right.
The struggle is
exactly. All right, sippers, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Podbean.
All of them.
Yes. Make sure you follow us, share our podcast, tell your friends, tell your mama, tell everybody about us, and make sure you tune in every Tuesday for True Crime Tuesday. New episodes drop every single week.
Right. And wait, sippers, we love your comments. Please continue to comment.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we love the engagement. And we might be popping up live one day soon, but stay tuned for the announcement.
Okay.
Well, sippers, we hate to leave, but we gotta go.
We gotta go.
All right. Bye, ladies. Bye, sippers.
Bye, ladies. Bye, sippers.
Bye.
Somebody it just cut out like
exactly.
That. I cut it out.
So Tarika and the two other co-conspirators. I'm like co-conspirators.
I was just about to say, when I heard that, when you said it, I was like, oh, is that like a pretense? You know, like, I was thinking
like,
of that.
Wait a minute.
But I was thinking it might have been right.